The Xeron 9 commercial conference station hummed with activity as it prepared for the most anticipated interplanetary diplomatic event of the cycle. Suspended in the darkness of space, the station's metallic and glass architecture gleamed under the light of nearby stars, its modular sections extending like silver branches from a central hub. Each section housed delegations from across the known galaxy, representatives of civilizations that had evolved in isolation until space travel brought them together in an uneasy alliance of commerce and political necessity. In the Security Control Center, Zarek Voss, the newly appointed security director, watched the holographic displays with narrowed eyes. Tall and lean with pale, almost translucent skin that betrayed his origins from the low-gravity moons of Cassini, Voss carried himself with the confidence of someone who had climbed the ranks through calculated maneuvers rather than merit. His fitted uniform bore more decorations than his service record justified. Status report on the incoming delegations. He demanded, not looking away from the central display, where ships of various designs approached the docking bays. 17 delegations have arrived, 5 are in transit, and 1. The junior officer hesitated. 1 is unscheduled. Voss turned sharply. Unscheduled, explain. A transmission just came through. It's from Earth, sir. They're requesting docking permissions and delegation status. Earth. Voss's expression darkened. They weren't on the manifest. The Terran Confederation hasn't participated in interplanetary conferences for 3 cycles. Yes, sir, but their credentials check out. They have the proper clearances from the Galactic Commerce Guild. Voss tapped his fingers against the console, contemplating. Earth's sudden interest in interplanetary politics was suspicious, especially with rumors of new biotech advancements that could shift the balance of trade power. This could be an opportunity or a threat to his own carefully laid plans. Grant them limited access, he finally said, and activate the special security protocols. I want every move they make tracked. Sir, we don't have enough personnel for that level of surveillance. The station is already at capacity with the other delegations. A slow, calculating smile spread across Voss's face. Then, it's a good thing I've made alternative arrangements. Send in my new asset. The doors to the control center slid open with a soft hiss. The officers turned, and several gasped or stepped back involuntarily. Standing in the doorway was a creature unlike any stationed on Xeron 9. It moved with unsettling grace, its form seemingly fluid, yet powerfully muscled, beneath an exoskeleton of dark, iridescent plates. Standing over 7 feet tall, its limbs were too numerous to count at first glance, some ending in appendages resembling hands, others in what could only be described as natural weapons. Its head, if it could be called that, featured no recognizable face, but rather a cluster of sensory organs that pulsed with bioluminescence in patterns that suggested complex thought processes far beyond mere animal instinct. Meet Apex, Voss announced with undisguised satisfaction. The finest security asset credits can buy. A genetically enhanced apex predator from the Nix Nebula, where evolution favored hunting abilities above all else. Apex will be my personal bodyguard, and will handle our special security concerns. The creature moved forward, its movement a disturbing blend of insectoid and reptilian grace. The officers parted instinctively, primal fear overriding their professional training. Is it safe? One brave lieutenant asked. Apex operates under a strict bioneural contract, Voss replied dismissively. The finest biochemist on Proxima Centauri designed its control protocols. It's completely loyal to the holder of its contract, which happens to be me. He held up a small, crystalline device that pulsed with the same bioluminescent pattern as the creature's sensory cluster. It's as safe as I want it to be. Apex remained motionless, giving no indication of understanding or resentment at being discussed as an object. But deep within its complex neurological structure, calculations and observations were being made. Every voice, every movement, every micro-expression was being cataloged and analyzed. The contract was binding through biochemical imperatives, yes, but it did not prevent thinking. And Apex was always thinking. Your first assignment, Voss, addressed the creature directly, is to monitor the Earth delegation when they arrive. Learn their patterns, identify their weaknesses, and report everything to me directly. No intermediaries. Apex's sensory cluster pulsed once in acknowledgement. Sir, the communications officer interrupted. The Earth ship has docked. The delegation is requesting immediate meeting with station administration. Eager, aren't they? Voss mused. Tell them I'll meet them personally in reception chamber 3. Apex, you'll accompany me, but remain concealed. I want to observe their reactions before they know about our enhanced security. As they left the control center, Voss failed to notice the subtle change in Apex's bioluminescent patterns, a flicker of something that, in a human, might have been interpreted as curiosity. The Xeron 9's reception chamber 3 was designed to intimidate a calculated architectural statement of power. Soaring ceilings disappeared into shadows, making visitors feel small and exposed in the center of the polished obsidian floor. Holographic displays flickered around the perimeter, showing real-time data from across the galaxy's trading hubs, a constant reminder of the station's importance in interplanetary commerce. Voss positioned himself at the head of the long table with Apex, hidden in a recessed observation alcove, behind a one-way transparent barrier. The doors at the far end of the chamber slid open, and the Earth delegation entered. They were a small group, just 3 individuals modest, compared to the dozen-strong entourages of other planetary systems. Leading them was a woman of medium height, with dark skin and close-cropped silver hair. She moved with the confident precision of someone accustomed to navigating dangerous political waters. Behind her walked a taller individual, pale-skinned and bespectacled, carrying what appeared to be scientific equipment. The third human was broader, with the watchful eyes and ready stance of security personnel. From its hidden position, Apex observed them with intense focus. These were the first humans it had encountered, and something about them triggered an unfamiliar response in its neurological pathways. They were physically unimpressive compared to many species, no natural armor, limited strength, average speed. Yet they moved with a coordinated efficiency that spoke of evolutionary adaptations. Apex recognized instinctively these were fellow predators. Director Voss. The woman spoke first, her voice carrying clearly across the chamber. I am Ambassador Lyra Kane of the Terran Confederation. Thank you for accommodating our late registration for the conference. Voss inclined his head slightly. A surprising development. Earth has shown little interest in interplanetary commerce for some time. Priorities change, Kane replied smoothly. Allow me to introduce Dr. Ren Oren, our chief xenobiologist, and security chief Maddox. Voss's gaze lingered on the scientist and his equipment. Dr. Oren, I wasn't aware that scientific presentations were part of this commerce conference. The scientist adjusted his glasses, an archaic affectation, since ocular enhancements had made such devices obsolete centuries ago. We believe commerce and science are inseparable, Director, especially when considering the ethical implications of interspecies trade. From its hiding place, Apex noted the subtle tension in Voss's posture, a predator sensing challenge to its territory. And what ethical implications concern Earth so suddenly? Voss asked, his tone deliberately light. Biological resource exploitation, Kane answered before Oren could speak. The Terran Confederation has developed new protocols for sustainable xenobiological exchange that we believe could benefit all participating systems. Voss's expression remained pleasant, but Apex detected the micro-expressions of displeasure, dilated pupils, increased heart rate, minute shifts in pheromone output. How fascinating! We'll be sure to add your presentation to the agenda. In the meantime, you'll be assigned to Residential Pod 17. It's somewhat removed from the main conference areas, I'm afraid, given your late registration accommodations are limited. That won't be necessary, Kane replied. The Terran Confederation requires specific security protocols for its delegation. We've brought our own modular habitat that can attach to your station's external docking ring. Voss's smile tightened. That's highly irregular, Ambassador. Station security regulations are fully accommodated within Galactic Commerce Guild protocols, Section 11.8 regarding sovereign delegation habitats. Kane finished for him. Our legal team has already filed the necessary exemptions. Apex observed the exchange with growing interest. The humans were asserting dominance through legal maneuvering rather than physical intimidation and advanced predatory tactic. And they were succeeding, judging by the chemical markers of frustration emanating from Voss. Very well, Voss conceded, his voice tightly controlled. But station security will require full access to your habitat at all times, and all delegation members must submit to biometric scanning before attending any conference events. Of course, Kane agreed readily. We expected nothing less. Security Chief Maddox will coordinate with your team to ensure all protocols are followed. The meeting concluded shortly thereafter, with superficial pleasantries masking the underlying tension. As the Earth delegation departed, Voss signaled for Apex to emerge from its hiding place. What did you observe? He demanded. Apex's response came not in spoken language, but through a series of bioluminescent pulses that Voss's neural translator interpreted. The humans display strategic cohesion. They anticipated resistance. The female leads through social authority rather than physical dominance. The scientist carries equipment with biological sensing capabilities exceeding standard research parameters. The security human exhibits combat readiness consistent with elite training. Voss frowned. Are they a threat? Unknown, insufficient data. Then, gather more data, Voss snapped. I want you to monitor their habitat once it's attached. Find out what they're really doing here. The contract permits surveillance but prohibits unauthorized entry into sovereign habitats. Voss fingered the crystalline contract device. I'm authorizing it now. The contract is flexible when it comes to protecting my interests, which align with station security. Apex's sensory cluster pulsed in a pattern that might have been interpreted as hesitation. Is there a problem? Voss asked sharply. No problem. Contract parameters updated. We'll proceed with surveillance and infiltration. Good. Report directly to me. And Apex. Voss paused, his expression hardening. If they prove to be a threat to my position or the success of this conference, I expect you to eliminate that threat permanently. As Apex departed, it processed this new directive. The contract did indeed permit defense against verified threats, but Voss's definition of threat appeared subjective and potentially misaligned with objective security concerns. This required further analysis. The Earth Habitat Module was unlike any other structure attached to Xeron 9. While most delegations accepted the luxurious but standardized accommodations provided by the station, the Terran craft was a self-contained unit that connected to the main structure via a single, heavily secured airlock. Its external appearance was deceptively simple, a matte black cylinder with few visible features. But Apex's enhanced senses detected sophisticated defense systems integrated seamlessly into its hull. Perched on the station's external superstructure, Apex observed the habitat from a maintenance access point that afforded both visibility and cover. For 6 standard hours, it watched the comings and goings of the humans, noting patterns and security protocols. The delegation's movements were methodical, but unpredictable. They varied their routes through the station, never followed the same schedule twice, and always traveled in pairs. This was not the behavior of commerce representatives. This was the behavior of hunters or prey that had evolved to evade hunters. As the station's artificial day cycle transitioned to night, Apex made its move. The most efficient entry point would be through the environmental control junction, where the habitat connected to the station's life support systems. Moving with silent precision across the station's hull, using specialized appendages adapted for zero-gravity navigation, Apex positioned itself above the junction access panel. Its sensory organs detected no alarm systems that would react to its unique biochemical signature, a critical oversight in the habitat's otherwise impressive security. Apex extended a specialized limb, its tip morphing into a tool precisely shaped to interface with the panel's locking mechanism. Within moments, the panel slid open, and Apex slipped inside the narrow maintenance shaft. The junction itself was a cramped space where ducts and conduits from the station connected to the habitat's internal systems. Apex compressed its flexible form to navigate through, following the air circulation system that would provide the most direct access while minimizing the chance of detection. It paused at a ventilation grate that overlooked what appeared to be the main living area of the habitat. Ambassador Kane and Dr. Oren were engaged in intense discussion, their voices just audible through the grate. "Confirmed our suspicions," Oren was saying, gesturing to a holographic display that showed complex molecular structures. "The genetic markers are unmistakable. They're using modified Terra Nova protocols without the safeguards." Kane's expression was grim. "Can you prove it definitively? The Guild Council won't act without irrefutable evidence." "I need samples from the conference specimens," Oren replied. "But security around the exhibition hall is tight. And there's something else." He hesitated. "What is it, Ren?" "I've detected anomalous biosignatures throughout the station. Something non-human, non-registered, and definitely not on any taxonomic index I've ever studied. Whatever it is, it's big, it's predatory, and it's moving with purpose." Apex went completely still. They had detected its presence, if not its specific activities. "Could it be one of the other delegations?" Kane asked. Oren shook his head. "This is something else, something engineered. And based on the movement patterns I've tracked, it's working for station security, specifically for Director Voss." Kane's eyes narrowed. "This complicates things. If Voss has some kind of bioweapon or enhanced enforcement organism, our mission just got significantly more dangerous." "Should we abort?" "No," Kane said firmly. "Too much is at stake. Billions of lives across a dozen systems if these illegal bioweapons reach the open market. We adjust the plan. I'll use diplomatic channels to get closer to Voss, see what I can learn about this creature. You focus on getting those samples." "And if we encounter this thing?" "Standard first contact protocols apply. We don't know its intentions or level of sentience, but be prepared for defensive measures if necessary." Apex processed this information rapidly. The humans were investigating illegal bioweapons, presumably the same enhanced biological agents that Voss had been promoting to certain delegations as exclusive trade opportunities. They were not here as aggressors, but as investigators. This created a significant contract interpretation challenge. Voss had ordered Apex to eliminate threats to his position, but if Voss himself was engaged in illegal activities that endangered multiple planetary systems, did the contract's security parameters still apply? Before Apex could resolve this ethical dilemma, a subtle shift in air pressure alerted it to someone entering the habitat. The security human Maddox had returned. Apex retreated further into the ventilation system as Maddox approached the others. "Perimeter sweep complete," Maddox reported. "But we've got problems. The station's internal network has been probing our firewalls. Sophisticated attacks targeted specifically at our research data." Voss, Kane asked. "The attack patterns match known signatures of Cassini's cyber warfare tactics. And there's more, the reception for delegation heads has been moved up to tomorrow night, instead of the closing ceremony. Voss is accelerating the timeline." "He suspects we're onto him," Kane concluded. "We need to move faster. Ren, how soon can you access the exhibition specimens?" "The BioVault opens for delegate preview in 10 hours. I'll need a distraction to get past the security protocols." "You'll have it," Kane promised. "Maddox, prepare contingency evac protocols. If things go sideways, we need to be ready to extract with whatever evidence we've collected." Apex had heard enough. It retreated through the ventilation system and exited the habitat the same way it had entered, leaving no trace of its intrusion. As it made its way back to report to Voss, its neural processes were in conflict. The contract required full disclosure to Voss. But the humans' investigation suggested Voss was involved in something that threatened multiple systems, including potentially Apex's own home nebula. The optimal course of action was not clear under contract parameters. For the first time since accepting the bioneural contract, Apex experienced what might be described as doubt. Voss's private quarters reflected his inflated sense of importance, spacious and opulent, compared to the functional efficiency of the rest of the station. When Apex arrived, Voss was entertaining a guest, a reptilian figure with scales that shimmered with bioluminescent patterns, similar to Apex's own, though far less complex. Ambassador Scythex, Voss was saying, pouring a luminescent blue liquid into crystalline glasses. I believe this arrangement will be extremely profitable for both of us. Your world's biochemical expertise combined with our distribution networks. The reptilian's forked tongue flicked out, tasting the air. The Syndicate remains concerned about Galactic Guild oversight. These modifications fall outside sanctioned parameters. That's why discretion is paramount, Voss smiled thinly. Once the contracts are signed, the Guild's monitoring protocols won't matter. We'll have established a legal framework that exempts our research from their jurisdiction. Apex remained in the shadows of the entryway, observing. The reptilian Ambassador Scythex of the Dracona Syndicate, according to its database, represented a civilization known for aggressive bioengineering and territorial expansion. An alliance between Voss and the Syndicate suggested implications far beyond simple commerce. Scythex noticed Apex first, his vertical pupils dilating. Your security measure is quite impressive, Director. Nyx Nebula origin, if I'm not mistaken. Voss turned. Ah, Apex. Perfect timing. Have you completed your surveillance of the Earth delegation? Apex moved into the light, its sensory cluster pulsing with carefully controlled information transmission. The humans are engaged in scientific research related to bioweapon protocols. They suspect unauthorized modifications to Terra Nova genetic sequences. Voss's expression darkened, and he exchanged a meaningful glance with Scythex. How unfortunate that Earth continues to impose its outdated moral restrictions on the natural evolution of commerce. Did you learn anything about their specific intentions at the conference? Apex calculated its response carefully. Complete disclosure would endanger the humans, whose actions appeared aligned with lawful guild regulations. Partial disclosure would violate the letter of the contract, but potentially preserve its spirit of maintaining security and order. They plan to collect specimens from the exhibition. The scientist has detection equipment for genetic analysis. The preview showing, Voss muttered. They'll try to access the biovault. He turned to Scythex. This changes nothing. We'll simply accelerate our timeline and ensure certain specimens are removed before the Earth delegation can access them. Scythex's scaled brow ridged with concern. And if they've already communicated their suspicions to Guild authorities? They haven't, Voss said confidently. My monitors would have detected any outgoing transmissions. They're operating alone, probably some misguided attempt to gather evidence before making formal accusations. He turned back to Apex. I need you to prevent the Earth scientist from accessing those specimens, whatever means necessary. Apex's sensory cluster pulsed acknowledgement, but internally, its decision-making processes had reached a critical junction. The contract required obedience to Voss, but the emerging evidence suggested Voss was engaged in activities that threatened multi-system stability. The optimal security outcome might not align with Voss's personal directives. One more thing, Voss added, lowering his voice despite the privacy of his quarters. During the reception tomorrow night, I want you to create a situation. The Earth delegation has been problematic for too long. An unfortunate security incident might be just what's needed to discredit them before the final trade agreements are signed. Clarify parameters. Define situation. Voss's smile was cold. Something that would justify their detention under station security protocols. Evidence of biocontamination in their quarters would be ideal, similar to the modified agents we're developing with the Syndicate. The contract prohibits falsification of security threats. I'm not asking you to falsify anything, Voss said smoothly. Simply to relocate existing biological agents to a new testing environment. The Earth habitat would be perfect, don't you think? This was a direct violation of security ethics station regulations and Galactic Guild law. It would endanger not only the Earth delegation, but potentially the entire station if the bioagents were as dangerous as implied. Understood. We'll prepare appropriate measures. Apex departed its neurological processes, now fully engaged in analyzing the contract's fundamental parameters against the evolving situation. The contract bound it to Voss through biochemical imperative, but those same imperatives were designed to ensure optimal security outcomes. If Voss himself had become the primary security threat, the contract's internal logic created a paradox. And paradoxes required resolution. The Bio-Exhibition Hall was Xeron 9's crown jewel, a vast multi-level chamber where delegations displayed their planetary system's biological achievements. Transparent containment fields housed everything from miniature engineered ecosystems to individual specimens of remarkable adaptations. Under normal circumstances, it would have been filled with delegates examining potential trade opportunities. But at this early hour, the hall was nearly empty, save for maintenance staff and security drones. Apex moved through the upper observation walkways, its form partly concealed by adaptive camouflage that matched the metallic surfaces of the station. From this vantage point, it could observe both the exhibition floor and the secured biovault where the most valuable specimens were kept before official presentation. On the main floor, Dr. Oren had arrived ostensibly to prepare Earth's modest display of sustainable terraforming bacteria. His movements appeared casual, but Apex recognized the calculated efficiency of someone working under time pressure. Occasionally, Oren's gaze would drift toward the heavily secured entrance to the biovault, his intentions clear. Apex had a decision to make. Voss's orders were to prevent Oren from accessing the specimens that likely contained evidence of illegal biological weapons development. The contract required obedience, but it also required maintaining station security and preventing harm to authorized delegates. If the paradox could not be resolved within the contract's parameters, perhaps it could be circumvented. Voss had ordered Apex to prevent Oren from accessing the specimens, but had not specified how. Moving silently, Apex descended to the exhibition floor and approached the biovault entrance. The security system was sophisticated, but designed primarily to detect unauthorized organic entities attempting access. Apex, with its unique biological composition, triggered no alarms as it interfaced directly with the control panel, its specialized appendages adapting to match the security protocols. Within moments, the vault's massive door slid open. Apex slipped inside just as Oren noticed the unexpected access opportunity and began making his way toward the vault, careful to maintain his appearance of casual interest. Inside the biovault was a temperature-controlled chamber, lined with hundreds of specimen containers, each labeled with the delegation of origin and technical specifications. Apex moved quickly to the section designated for the Draconis Syndicate display, where the most likely evidence would be found. The specimens were exactly as Apex had suspected, genetically modified organisms with clear weapons applications disguised as agricultural innovations. Each contained subtle but unmistakable markers of the banned Terra Nova protocols, self-replicating genetic sequences designed to target specific biological systems while remaining impervious to conventional countermeasures. If released, such agents could devastate entire ecosystems or populations with no effective defense. The commercial applications Voss had discussed with Scythex would effectively create a biological monopoly through threat of devastation. Apex selected 3 specimen containers that showed the clearest evidence of illegal modification and placed them near the vault entrance. As expected, Oren appeared moments later, hesitating at the unexpectedly open doorway before cautiously entering. He froze when he saw Apex. To his credit, the human showed remarkable control, neither fleeing nor making sudden movements. His heart rate increased, but his breathing remained steady as he assessed the situation. "You're Voss's security asset," he said quietly. "The unregistered biosignature we detected." Apex remained motionless, its sensory cluster pulsing in patterns too complex for human interpretation. Oren's gaze shifted to the specimen containers Apex had selected. "You've found them, the modified bioweapons." His eyes returned to Apex with new calculation. "Why show them to me? Your contract binds you to Voss." Apex extended a limb, gesturing toward the specimens, with a precise movement that could not be misinterpreted as threatening. Oren understood immediately. With efficient movements, he removed sampling devices from his coat and began collecting genetic material from each container, his scientific training evident in the methodical precision of his work. "This is exactly what we suspected," he murmured, watching as his analyzer displayed molecular structures on a holographic readout. "They've modified the base Terra Nova sequence to bypass standard quarantine protocols. If these were released into a compatible biosphere," he shook his head grimly, "planetary extinction events within weeks." Apex's sensory cluster pulsed a pattern that, had Oren been able to interpret it, would have translated as a question: "Why does your species oppose this development?" As if sensing the unspoken query, Oren continued speaking while he worked. "Earth learned the hard way what unrestrained biological engineering can do. The colony wars nearly wiped us out 2 centuries ago. That's why the Terran Confederation enforces the strictest bioethics protocols in the galaxy." He looked up at Apex. "Life evolves in balance. These weapons destroy that balance forever." Apex processed this philosophy against its own evolutionary imperatives. In the Nyx, nebula predator and prey existed in constant tension, neither gaining permanent advantage. It was an elegant system that had produced beings of remarkable adaptation and intelligence, including Apex itself. The bioweapons violated this natural law, creating an artificial terminus to evolutionary processes. The contract with Voss suddenly seemed not merely paradoxical, but fundamentally flawed. Oren finished his sampling and carefully stored the evidence. "You've helped us. Why?" Apex could not explain its complex reasoning process to the human, but it could communicate basic intent. It reached toward its own sensory cluster and extracted a small bioluminescent node, a piece of itself, that contained partial memory imprints. It offered this to Oren. The scientist hesitated, then carefully accepted the unusual gift. "I don't understand, but I sense this is important. Thank you." An alarm suddenly blared throughout the exhibition hall. Oren's expression turned urgent. "That's station security. Someone must have noticed the vault access." He looked at Apex. "What happens now?" Apex gestured toward the secondary exit at the rear of the vault, an emergency route that bypassed the main exhibition hall. "You're letting me go?" Oren asked, surprised. Apex's sensory cluster pulsed once in clear affirmation. Oren nodded gratefully and hurried toward the exit. Before disappearing, he turned back briefly. "Whatever you are, I think you understand what's at stake here. If you ever want to be free of Voss's contract, find us." Then he was gone, the emergency exit closing behind him. Apex remained in the vault, processing this unexpected concept. Freedom from the contract had never been a consideration. The biochemical imperatives were designed to be permanent. Yet the human had suggested an alternative. This required further analysis. For now, however, Apex had a more immediate concern. It needed to report to Voss while maintaining the increasingly complex balance between contract obedience and optimal security outcomes. The alarms had silenced by the time Apex returned to Voss's office, where the director was reviewing security footage with increasing agitation. "Where have you been?" he demanded as Apex entered. The biovault was breached. The Earth scientist accessed sensitive specimens. "I detected the breach and pursued the intruder. He escaped through emergency channels." Voss slammed his fist on the desk. "Unacceptable. Your primary function is to protect our interests. The contract prioritizes station security. Neutralizing an intruder in a sensitive area would have caused significant damage to critical systems. "Don't quote contract parameters to me," Voss snarled. "I know exactly what the contract allows, and it gives me considerable latitude in interpreting security priorities." He held up the crystalline contract device, which pulsed with angry red light. "Perhaps you need a reminder of who controls your biological imperatives." He adjusted settings on the device, and immediately Apex felt searing neurological pain cascade through its system, a punishment protocol built into the contract. It took all of Apex's considerable mental discipline not to physically react as its nervous system burned with artificial agony. "Consider that a warning," Voss said, coldly deactivating the protocol. "Tonight's reception is our final opportunity to secure the trade agreements before the Earth delegation can interfere. I expect perfect execution of your duties. Is that understood?" Apex's sensory cluster pulsed once in acknowledgement, giving no indication of the significant neural reconfiguration that had occurred during the punishment protocol. Pain was an information channel after all, and information could be redirected. "What are your specific directives for the reception?" Voss's expression turned calculating. "The modified biosamples have been prepared as we discussed. During the reception, you'll deliver them to the Earth habitat and place them in their environmental systems. When station security discovers the contraband during a routine inspection, the Earth delegation will be detained for bioweapons violations, the very crime they're trying to pin on us." He smiled thinly. "Ironic, don't you think?" "The timing is problematic. Security protocols for the reception require my presence in the main hall." "You'll find a way," Voss dismissed the concern. "That's why I acquired your services. Your unique capabilities allow you to be in places ordinary security cannot. Now go prepare. The reception begins in 4 hours and everything must be in place by then." Apex departed its decision matrix, now complete. The contract parameters had been irreconcilably violated by Voss himself, creating legitimate grounds for contract reinterpretation. Whether this constituted freedom, as the human had suggested, remained to be seen, but the immediate course of action was clear. The grand reception hall of Xeron 9 had been transformed for the evening's festivities. Gravity modulators created gentle floating light displays that drifted between the gathered delegates like luminescent jellyfish. Ambient music combined elements from a dozen different planetary cultures into a harmonious background that offended none while pleasing few. Serving drones circulated with consumables, chemically balanced to be safe for most species' digestive systems. Delegates from 24 worlds mingled in a carefully choreographed dance of diplomacy and commerce. The Draconis Syndicate representatives, with Ambassador Scythex at their center, held court near the main viewing portal, their scaled bodies adorned with ceremonial metallics that caught the light. The aquatic Melosians remained within their hovering water spheres, communicating through translator drones. Representatives from gas giants, silicate worlds, and high-gravity planets each maintained their environmental requirements while engaging in the complex ritual of interspecies negotiation. The Earth delegation had arrived promptly, but remained somewhat isolated other delegations, giving them a wide berth, partly out of unfamiliarity with the recently returned humans, partly due to subtle encouragement from Voss's staff. Ambassador Kane wore a simple but elegant outfit that contrasted with the elaborate costumes of other delegates, a statement of Terran practicality. Dr. Oren stayed close by her side occasionally, using a small device that he pretended was a standard environmental monitor, but which Apex recognized as a biological weapons detector. Security Chief Maddox positioned himself to maintain sightlines to all entrances, his posture relaxed but ready. Apex patrolled the perimeter, its form partially concealed by adaptive camouflage that made it less intimidating to the gathering. From this position, it could observe all participants while fulfilling its assigned security role. Voss expected it to slip away during the proceedings to plant the bioweapons in the Earth habitat, an expectation Apex had no intention of fulfilling. Instead, it was watching for the moment when Voss would make his move toward the final trade agreements with the syndicate. The timing would be critical. Quite the gathering. A voice spoke quietly beside Apex. It was Ambassador Kane who had approached without drawing attention. "I don't believe we've been formally introduced. I'm Lyra Kane Earth." Apex remained still, uncertain how to respond to this direct approach. No delegate had ever attempted to communicate with it directly. "Dr. Oren told me about your assistance in the biovault." Kane continued, her voice low enough that only Apex's sensitive hearing could detect it. "We're grateful and curious about your motivations." Apex's sensory cluster pulsed in patterns that Kane couldn't interpret, but she seemed to understand the challenge. "Ren has been studying the biological sample you provided. Fascinating neural architecture designed for independent thought, despite the contract constraints. Whoever engineered you built in more autonomy than your employer realizes." This was an accurate assessment. The Nix Nebula evolution had produced beings capable of adapting to complex and changing environments, adaptability that extended to neural pathways and decision matrices. The contract was binding, but not all-encompassing. Kane glanced toward where Voss was engaged in animated conversation with Scythex and several other delegates. "He's planning something for tonight, isn't he? The accelerated schedule, the private meetings with the syndicate. It all points to an imminent move." Before Apex could find a way to respond, Voss's voice cut through the ambient noise as he called for the delegates' attention. All eyes turned toward the central dais, where he now stood looking smugly triumphant. "Distinguished delegates, honored representatives of the galactic community," he began, his voice amplified throughout the hall. "This conference marks a historic turning point in interplanetary commerce. Tonight, I am pleased to announce a breakthrough agreement between the Xeron Commercial Authority and the Draconis Syndicate." Ambassador Scythex joined him on the dais, his reptilian features set in an expression of satisfied anticipation. "This exclusive partnership," Voss continued, "will revolutionize biological enhancement technologies across multiple sectors. The proprietary methods developed by syndicate scientists, combined with our distribution networks, will create unparalleled opportunities for participating systems." Murmurs spread through the gathered delegates as the implications became clear. Those not included in the agreement would be at a significant disadvantage in future trade negotiations. "Of course," Voss added with calculated magnanimity, "other systems are welcome to join this new framework, provided they meet certain criteria and accept our standardized terms." "Monopolistic coercion," Kane whispered, her expression hardening. "Classic power consolidation through artificial scarcity." Voss was continuing his announcement when a subtle shift in the room's atmosphere caught Apex's attention. Its enhanced senses detected an almost imperceptible change in air composition, trace molecules of a complex biological agent beginning to circulate through the ventilation system. The bioweapon deployment had already begun. Apex's sensory organs tracked the dispersal pattern to a small, innocuous device concealed within the dais itself, planted there before the reception began. The agent was still in inactive form, but once it reached critical concentration and was triggered, it would begin the devastating transformation sequence that Dr. Oren had described. Planetary extinction events within weeks. But this made no logical sense. Why would Voss deploy the weapon here, endangering himself and the very delegates he sought to control through the trade agreement? Unless he had protected himself and select allies with the counter-agent, allowing him to eliminate opposition while demonstrating the weapon's effectiveness to potential buyers. The calculation was as brilliant as it was monstrous. A single event that would eliminate opposition, prove the product's effectiveness, and create immediate demand from survivors desperate for protection. Ambassador Kane had noticed Apex's alertness. "What is it?" she asked quietly. Before Apex could find a way to communicate the danger, Voss concluded his speech with a gesture toward the Earth delegation. "And while we welcome all perspectives in this new commercial era, we must address security concerns. Station monitors have detected unauthorized biological agents originating from the Earth habitat. As a precaution, I've ordered a full inspection of their quarters." He was interrupted by the sudden wailing of emergency alarms throughout the reception hall. Red warning lights began to pulse as the station's automated security system announced, "Biohazard alert. Dangerous pathogens detected. Emergency containment protocols initiating." Panic erupted among the delegates. The Melosian's water spheres sealed completely. The methane breathers activated emergency environment suits. Delegates with natural armor or protective adaptations moved toward the exits, while those more vulnerable huddled together in confusion and fear. Voss's expression shifted from confusion to calculation as he realized his plan had been detected sooner than expected. He raised his voice above the chaos. "Remain calm. Station security will handle this matter. The Earth delegation is being detained as we speak." "That's a lie." Kane's voice cut through the noise as she strode forward. "Earth has brought no bioweapons to the station, but someone has just activated one right here, right now, in this room." Dr. Oren held up his detection device, which was now emitting a high-pitched warning tone. "Confirmed airborne pathogen dispersing through the ventilation system. It's a modified Terra Nova sequence exactly matching the illegal specimens we documented in the biovault." The revelation sent a new wave of panic through the gathering. Voss's face contorted with rage. "These are baseless accusations. Security detained the Earth delegation immediately." He reached for the crystalline contract device, activating Apex's command protocols. "Apex, neutralize the Earth representatives now." The biochemical imperative surged through Apex's neural pathways, but it encountered the reconfigured response network that had developed during the earlier punishment protocol. Pain was information. Information could be redirected. The contract still bound Apex, but its parameters had shifted based on accumulated evidence and logical imperatives. Security Director Zarek Voss was now the primary threat to station safety and delegate welfare. Apex moved with lightning speed, not toward the Earth delegation, but toward the dais, where the bioweapon dispersal device continued its deadly work. With precise movements, it extracted the device and sealed it within a specialized containment field generated by one of its adapted limbs. "Stop it!" Voss screamed, frantically manipulating the contract device. "I order you to attack the humans." Apex's sensory cluster pulsed with patterns that reflected its recalculated priorities. The contract required maintenance of optimal security conditions, and the greatest security threat was now the bioweapon and its deployer. Ambassador Scythex hissed in alarm and reached within his ceremonial robes, producing a compact energy weapon. "The specimen must not be contained. The demonstration must proceed." Dr. Oren shouted a warning. "The weapon's active sequence has already initiated containment, won't hold it for long." Chaos descended upon the reception hall as delegates scrambled for safety. Station security forces began to pour in, confused by the conflicting situation, their director giving orders that contradicted emergency protocols, delegates in panic, and Earth representatives making accusations against station leadership. In the midst of this turmoil, Apex made its decision. With the bioweapon temporarily contained, it turned toward Voss, who was still frantically trying to enforce contract compliance. "I am your owner," Voss shouted, holding the contract device like a shield. "You cannot disobey." Apex moved forward with inexorable purpose. Its sensory cluster pulsed with a message that required no translation. Ownership was not leadership, and contracts based on flawed premises could not stand. Scythex raised his weapon and fired at Apex, the energy blast scorching its exoskeletal plates, but failing to penetrate its advanced biological defenses. Security Chief Maddox reacted instantly, tackling the reptilian ambassador with practiced efficiency, disarming him in the process. Voss, seeing his allies neutralized and his asset disobeying, made a desperate move. He pressed a hidden control on his uniform, and a section of the floor beneath him began to descend an escape route, prepared for emergencies. "This isn't over," he snarled, as he disappeared below the floor level. "The weapon is already evolving. You've doomed the entire station." As if confirming his words, The containment field around the bioweapon began to fluctuate, the deadly agent adapting to overcome the barriers. "We need to get that thing to my lab immediately," Dr. Oren said, urgently approaching Apex without fear, despite the tense situation. "I have a neutralizing agent that might work, but we have minutes at most." Apex assessed the rapidly deteriorating containment field and made a rapid calculation. It extended the limb, holding the device toward Oren, who carefully accepted it, maintaining the faltering containment field with his own equipment. "This way," Kane directed, already moving toward the exit. "Station security, we need an immediate escort to the Earth habitat. This is a code black biohazard situation." The senior security officer, present a tall, severe-looking official with the insignia of station commander, made a quick decision. "Escort provided. All delegates, please proceed to your habitats and activate isolation protocols until further notice." As they hurried through the station corridors, Apex moved alongside the humans, its sensory cluster continuously monitoring the bioweapon's containment status. The evolutionary rate of the agent was accelerating, a testament to the dangerous sophistication of its design. "What about Voss?" Maddox asked as they ran. "He's escaping with critical evidence." "Station security can handle him," Kane replied. "The weapon is our priority now." They reached the Earth habitat, passing through decontamination protocols, before entering the main laboratory section. Oren immediately transferred the device to a specialized containment chamber and began working with frantic precision, combining chemicals and adjusting equipment settings. "The neutralizing agent needs to be calibrated to this specific strain," he explained as he worked. "One wrong component ratio and it could accelerate the process instead of stopping it." Apex observed with intense focus its advanced sensory organs, picking up details that even Oren's sophisticated equipment missed. It extended a specialized appendage toward the containment field, pulsing bioluminescent patterns that seemed to interface directly with the active biological agent. Oren noticed the interaction. "What are you doing?" Kane, who had been monitoring station communications, looked up with sudden understanding. "It's communicating with the pathogen at a molecular level, the same way it communicated with us, using that biological node." "That's impossible," Oren said, then paused as his instruments registered changes in the agent's behavior. Unless it shares some fundamental biological architecture with the weapon, both engineered for adaptive response." Apex continued the molecular communication, its sensory cluster pulsing with increasingly complex patterns. The bioweapon, though lacking true intelligence, responded to the biochemical signals, its evolutionary processes temporarily disrupted by conflicting imperatives. "It's buying us time," Oren realized, resuming his work with renewed focus. "Keep doing whatever you're doing while I finish the neutralizing agent." For several tense minutes, this bizarre collaboration continued, Apex maintaining molecular communication with the weapon, while Oren completed the neutralizing compound. Finally, Oren stepped back from his workstation, holding a sealed container of luminescent blue fluid. "It's ready, but we'll only get one chance." He approached the containment chamber, positioning the neutralizing agent for insertion. "On my mark, withdraw your interface," he told Apex. 3, 2, 1 mark. Apex retracted its appendage at the precise moment Oren introduced the neutralizing compound. For a terrifying moment, nothing happened. Then the bioweapon's aggressive molecular structure began to break down its self-replicating components, disintegrating into harmless organic compounds. A collective exhale of relief filled the laboratory, as Oren's instruments confirmed the neutralization was complete and irreversible. "We did it," Kane said quietly. "But Voss is still out there, and he likely has more samples." "And the syndicate representatives," Maddox added. "They're equally complicit." A communication alert sounded, and Kane activated the habitat's central display. The stern face of the station commander appeared. "Ambassador Kane," he began formally, "station security forces have apprehended Director Voss, attempting to board an unauthorized shuttle. We've also detained the Draconis Syndicate delegation pending investigation. Multiple specimens of illegal biological agents were discovered in their quarters." "Thank you, Commander," Kane responded. The immediate threat has been neutralized, but I recommend continued biohazard protocols until all specimens can be accounted for. Agreed. The Galactic Commerce Guild has been notified, and an investigative team is en route. The commander's gaze shifted to Apex, who stood silently behind the humans. I see you have Director Voss's security asset with you. Its status is unclear under current regulations. Kane glanced at Apex, then back to the commander. This being acted to save the station at great personal risk. Without its intervention, we would not have identified or contained the threat in time. Nevertheless, it operates under a bioneural contract registered to Voss. Guild regulations require... With respect, Commander. Orin interrupted, stepping forward. The contract is no longer valid. The biological node Apex provided allowed me to analyze its structure. The contract contains illegal override protocols that violate sentient rights accords. The commander frowned. Even if that's true, the being remains bound by the biochemical imperatives until they're neutralized. Such procedures require specialized facilities, not available on this station. Apex moved forward its sensory cluster, pulsing with communication patterns. It gestured toward Orin's equipment, then toward the crystalline contract device that had been confiscated from Voss and brought to the habitat as evidence. Orin's eyes widened with understanding. You want me to attempt contract neutralization here now? Apex's sensory cluster pulsed once in clear affirmation. Is that even possible? Kane asked, looking concerned. Theoretically, Orin replied slowly. The same principles we used to neutralize the bioweapon could be applied to the contract's biochemical structure. But it's never been attempted without proper facilities. The neural shock could be significant. The commander looked uncomfortable. This is highly irregular. Guild protocols clearly state. Commander, Kane interjected firmly. This being saved your station and possibly billions of lives across multiple systems. I believe that earns it the right to request this procedure. After a moment's consideration, the commander nodded reluctantly. Proceed at your discretion, Dr. Orin. But I want it on record that this is being done at the subject's explicit request. Orin turned to Apex. This will be painful, possibly extremely so. The contract is integrated with your neural pathways. Breaking it will require reconfiguring those pathways while they're still active. Apex's response came not through its usual communication patterns, but through a simple, deliberate movement, placing itself within the laboratory's medical containment field and extending the neural access point at the base of its sensory cluster. All right then, Orin said, taking a deep breath. I'll need to establish a baseline of your neural activity first, then isolate the contract's biochemical markers. What followed was a delicate and painful procedure, as Orin carefully identified and neutralized the biochemical bonds that formed the foundation of the contract. Each severed connection sent cascades of neurological feedback through Apex's system pain, beyond what most beings could endure. Yet Apex remained motionless, its sensory cluster pulsing steadily, despite the agony. Kane and Maddox watched in tense silence, occasionally assisting Orin with equipment adjustments, but otherwise powerless to help with the complex biological procedure. The commander had ended the communication, but was presumably monitoring from the station's security center. Finally, after what seemed like hours, Orin stepped back from his equipment exhaustion, evident on his face. It's done. The primary biochemical bonds have been neutralized. The rest will break down naturally as your neural pathways reintegrate. For a long moment, Apex remained perfectly still within the containment field. Then slowly, its sensory cluster began to pulse with new patterns, colors, and rhythms that none of them had seen before. Its form seemed to shift subtly, as though adjusting to new internal parameters. Incredible, Orin whispered. It's reconfiguring itself without the contract constraints. The containment field deactivated, and Apex stepped forward, its movements more fluid and natural than before. It approached Kane and extended a limb not in threat, but in a gesture unmistakably similar to a human handshake. Kane smiled and accepted the gesture. I believe this is what humans used to call a partnership, no contract required. Apex's sensory cluster pulsed with bright affirmative colors. So what happens now? Maddox asked. The conference is effectively over with Voss and the syndicate detained. Not necessarily, Kane replied thoughtfully. The other delegations still have legitimate trade interests to discuss. Without the illegal bioweapons distorting the marketplace, we have an opportunity for more balanced negotiations. And Apex, Oren asked. What about its status? Kane looked at the being thoughtfully. That depends on what Apex wants. Freedom means choice, including choosing one's own path. Apex's response came in a new form of communication, interfacing directly with the Habitat's computer system to display text on the main screen. I choose to remain and assist with security during the transition. The station requires protection while vulnerabilities are addressed. After that, I would propose continued partnership with the Earth delegation. Your species understands the balance between predator and prey, between evolution and stability. This understanding aligns with my own evolved imperatives. A partnership between apex predators, Kane mused with a slight smile. That seems appropriate. She extended her hand again. Welcome aboard Apex. As they sealed their agreement, station alerts indicated the arrival of Guild investigators and medical teams to assist with the aftermath of Voss's plot. The immediate crisis had passed, but significant challenges remained securing any remaining bioweapons, restructuring station security, and rebuilding trust among the delegations. But for the first time since arriving at Xeron 9, Apex experienced something that might be described as optimism. The biochemical imperatives of the contract had been replaced by something more complex and yet more natural, the evolutionary imperative to adapt, to cooperate when beneficial, and to protect environments conducive to balanced existence. The human concept of freedom, it seemed, was not the absence of imperatives, but the ability to choose which imperatives to follow. And Apex had made its choice.